Hello, everyone. So, we are so sorry for the technical difficulties that we were having. It's been one of those couple of weeks, to be honest with you, when a lot of things have just been happening and been going on. As well, shoot, all of 2020 has been that. So, please forgive us as we promise you that you are in for a treat. To start, my name is Athenia Rodney with Emoji Events, and I'm also the co-creator of our annual Juneteenth event. And as you all know, we have decided that we would be doing micro lives monthly on the 19th of every month so that we can bring to you some great content about the Black experience. The Black experience is more than just slavery. We have gone through so many different things, and um, that are great and that have been great, and we want to continue to bring you some of the greatness that we offer. So to tell you a little bit about our mission for Juneteenth is to create a broadened awareness of Black culture using the Juneteenth platform via the principles of Kwanzaa that will help to move us towards better collaboration, rebuilding of a national Black Wall Street, and empowering efforts that will help to put policies together for effective change. So I just want to always start off our sessions with you guys, just reminding you of our mission and talking to you a little bit about why we got started and how we got started. So without further ado, I am going to bring on our speaker for today, and her name is Shawnee Benton Gibson. I've had the pleasure of engaging with her in a number of different ways, but most recently has been a Rites of Passage program that I'm sure she will talk about. And I am just she's been a blessing for me in so many different ways, and she continues to be a blessing for women and for the nation of Black people. So let me bring on Shawnee to say hi.
Hi. Greetings, everyone.
Hello.
Hi. How you doing, everyone?
Good, good.
I can't see who's here, so you will have to help me out. This is a new platform for me,
Yep,
StreamYard, so I'm excited. So you'll tell me how the structure and the ritual for this space works so I can honor that and step into that powerfully.
sure, not a problem. So I'm gonna come off camera. I'm gonna give you the floor. I will be backstage, and I will be. If anyone has any questions, I will post. You'll see it come up on the screen at the bottom here. So anyone, that if you have any questions, please put it on Facebook or on YouTube. We're streaming both in both places currently. So people who have questions or like to participate in the activities today, please do. We welcome you. This is an interactive experience. And Shawnee, I will give you the floor.
Awesome. So I just want to thank everybody for your patience. Athenia just shared that there were some technical difficulties. I am a Zoom and Google Meets girl. But one of the things in reference to today's conversation, one of the R's in our title is revolution. So being revolutionary, being able to pivot, being able to be spontaneous and to improv in spaces where you thought or I thought a particular thing would go one way and then it goes another. Like some of us have a really difficult time making adjustments. And this last several months has been a season of major adjustment in every moment. And so I salute all of you for still being here, for being present, for engaging in a process where you get to unpack and explore, because it would be easy to make up that too stressed, traumatized, wounded by all that's going on. Some of us might be on this in this presentation right now, fresh off the loss of a loved one, a dear friend, a family member, an intimate partner. So it does not get lost on me that you are present in this conversation and co-creating space right now. So as Athenia said, my name is Shawnee Renee Benton Gibson. I am 51 and reaching for the sun each and every day. Inside of my work with Spirit of a Woman Leadership Development Institute, I get to do many things. I get to teach, coach, create the space for me to be the conduit for those who join me and co-create with me to heal. I also am a performance artist, and I bring healing art as one of my gifts to the world. Like, it's not just about singing a song or acting on stage or writing or directing or producing, which are things that are in my wheelhouse that I know how to do, but it's about doing that in the service of transformation of community. So I engage in edutainment, in ritual art, so that folks can get aligned and connected to who they are and connect with their roots, engage in ritual, and then experience revolution around that. And when I think of the word revolution, I also think about like a rotation, like this full turning and churning that happens with us. So we're in a revolutionary phase right now with everything that's going on with COVID-19 and the civil unrest, and the racial, the stuff that many of us have been aware of already, but like it's full stage across the world and across the planet, what's happening here in the United States, the Black Lives Matter movement, and just all of these different institutions that have been about the business of creating equity for us all along. Now everything is converging in social media and on the news, and it's just been an incredible season to live in. And I definitely am paying close attention to what type of history I get to make. So today's topic, once again, is ritual roots and revolution, women exploring rites of passage as a gateway to their power. So I would love to hear from you all, like how you are connected to, if at all, rites of passage experiences. Like, what do you know of rites of passage? And when I say rites of passage, the word that I'm using, like rite, what is it? Homily. I can't remember what the name of the word is, that when words sound just the same but they're spelled differently. So in this case, there are three words: rites, rites, rights, rights, and then rights, writes. I forget the name of it. Y'all forgive me. Some of you out there are educators or just English buffs or whatever, and you might know what it is, but it's escaping me right now. But what I'm speaking of in reference to rights is rites. And engaging in them with intention might create a space for you to turn yourself right side up, right. Then also writing, like the literal writing, the use of the hand in this apparatus called a pen or pencil, crayon, whatever you use, writing can allow you to get clear. So Demonica, hello to you. Greetings to you from Facebook. So if you do have a connection with rites of passage, whether you're watching this live or folks who will watch the playback, please do put that in the post underneath, so that we will, I will get to know who's out there and what you're aware of in reference to this journey called rights. And Athenia, I would love for you, if you're able, to pop back on and to let me know where we are as far as numbers of participation and things like that. So I know if I'm just speaking and sharing from a space of like when folks get here later, or if I'm speaking to people who are literally in the space right now.
Sure. Right now, we have about 15 people who are showing active on the presentation.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
All right, excellent.
well,
So, and you can definitely support me if you would. And
definitely.
if comments are there about rites of passage and people's awareness of it, then great, you can read them in reference to their understanding and interaction with them. And if not, then I'll just carry on. So you let me know how to proceed, because I know all of the moments that we have together are precious, especially since I arrived a little later in the process than what was planned.
No problem. We'll definitely do. I'm here.
Okay. All right, excellent. All right, so what I will say about rites of passage is that whether you are aware of it or not, we all have experienced rites of passage moments. And Demonica, thank you for sharing that you are not aware. So I love that I get to pour into this space and create a level of awareness. So, or support you in expanding your awareness. And Demonica, you have gone through a rite. You just don't call it that, right? We haven't been conditioned or acculturated to call it that, some of us. So your first rite of passage was your birth. A rite of passage is designed to take you from one stage or phase of beingness to another. It can expand you, it can transform you, it can activate something in your life that you never thought that you would experience. Nigel, I'm registered to participate in the upcoming So Rites of Passage program starting this weekend. Yes, that's right. So Athenia is a graduate of Be the Tree Rites of Passage Collective, and Nigel is about to enter and embark on cycle or cohort 16 of the Rites of Passage, which starts this weekend. This Sunday will be the Sunday group or collective that will take the journey, and then Monday will be the Monday group that takes the journey over the next 4 months. So it runs from August, the end of August, to the beginning of December. So a rite of passage, we all have experienced them, as I was saying. And the very first one is birth, like being born, whether you were a C-section baby, whether you were preterm labor, whether you were a vaginal birth, whether your mother, depending on your age, was put to sleep and then she woke up and poof, there was a baby. Um, the rites of passage, your very first one was your birth. And then we go through many others. And this session is about this. The second part of the title is exploring women, exploring rites of passage as the gateway to their power. Like when we're present to the power of our transition moments, this COVID experience being one of them, then we get an opportunity to choose growth and development. Or you can choose to put your head under a rock and be like, this is not happening. I can't take it anymore. I don't want to deal with these emotions. I didn't sign on for this, and not allow the rite of passage, which is happening anyway, whether you call it that or not, to actually take you to a space of transformation, growth, expansion, discovery. So birth being the first one. So even though most of us, and I say most of us because I've talked to people and they're like, I remember when I was a baby. I'm like, all right, I love it. I do not. I think my first memory is when I was like 2.5 or 3 years old. Some people go further back, and I might have an earlier remembrance or memory. I remember falling out of the crib, out of the bed. So I think I was months old, and maybe I was like 8 or 9 months old. And I remember hitting the floor. So a lot of times we remember things based on trauma and wounding. But rites of passage after birth, there are many. So think about like something that takes you from one stage of development to another stage of development, something that expands you, something that moves you further along, or even can take you backwards, depending on what has occurred. So the next one that I can think of, just in the realm of being a baby or in your formative years, is walking or crawling. Those are rites of passage. Like if you're being held in arm, rocked, fed, carried around by your mom or your dad or your caregivers, whoever they might be, because we're not always raised by our mothers and fathers, then literally when you start to be mobile on your own and you're able to, get on your knees and hands and move through spaces and grab stuff and pull yourself up, that's a rite of passage. And then also when you move from crawling around, or even before that, remember, for the mothers and fathers in the space or caregivers in the space of infants, when they start to use the arm and they like tuck it under and then they start to roll over. It's amazing. Like when the baby is able to do that. And so rolling over, crawling, and then walking, all demonstrations of rites of passage. So, like I said, we experience this throughout our entire lives. And some of these experiences are ritualized, meaning they're captured in video, they're captured in photographs, they're captured by people gathering together to celebrate. So for some of us, the rite of passage for our mothers or caregivers was that the community gathered and maybe had a baby shower, right? Some, wait until after the baby is born and then they have a naming ceremony, or they introduce and show the newborn baby to the world. And this is Kayla, or this is Jonathan, or this is Frederick, who's named after my great great grandfather. So the ritual that is associated with this evolution called life and these bodies that we have in this human existence. So for any of you who are now getting acquainted based on what I'm sharing with what rites of passage rites of passage experiences are, please do put in the chat a rite of passage experience that you had when you were a child. When you were a child, just think about up to age 10. Think about things that you can recall. What were your rites of passage moments? Because I don't want to give it all away. I want to definitely have you kind of think about it, intuit about it, and then put in the chat what the experiences have been for you. And Athenia, if anything pops up, I see that in this space, like the answers pop up when they're put in. I love that. I think that's so cool. Hi, Delora. Hi, I love these names. Hi, Delora. So, Delora, if you're just joining us, we're talking about the journey of rites of passage and what it means for women and just in general. If there are men or brothers that are part of the conversation, you can definitely benefit from this too, because you learning this, if you have daughters, if you have sisters, if you have cousins that identify as women or female, um, if you have colleagues at work, like your knowledge of this will allow you to be a more present and powerful partner with them and have a presence to what their experiences have been. So if anybody has posted about an experience from birth to 10 years old where they experienced a rite of passage moment, please do post about that. So rituals. So in the title, it says Ritual, Roots, and Revolution. So when we're thinking about, Robin, thank you, graduating from kindergarten to first grade and from the fifth grade to the sixth. Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm trying to remember if I actually had a graduation from kindergarten into first grade, but I do remember the distinction. I remember being in kindergarten and being able to take naps, and being in kindergarten and getting and receiving snacks, and then moving from that space of like, oh, you're still a youngin', you're still a baby, to a space of you're expected to learn. And not that I didn't learn in kindergarten, but it's a more structured and formal process when you move from pre-K, now it's 3K, to actually being in first grade, having the notebooks and the book bag and just all of that juiciness. Now, that was back then because I'm 51, but now, like, school and the whole structure happens in a very more formalized way. Like, even when you're in nursery school, you're still doing some things that would be associated with being in an upper tier or higher level of education. So, Robin, thank you for sharing that experience of moving from kindergarten to first grade, because for me, during that period of time, it was definitely a big deal. I was a big girl when I moved from kindergarten to first grade. And I remember Miss Tucker being my first grade teacher, and just how present she was. Delora, a rite of passage I can recall was my mother letting me style my own hair myself. I remember her saying I could do it, and when I turned a certain age. Thank you. Do you remember what age that was? And my own rite of passage experience of doing my hair myself. Oh my God, Delora, I jacked my hair up. My grandmother had growing hands, and so she would wash my hair. She would straighten it, and it was so thick and long. And then when I graduated, when I became an adolescent and started doing that hair and using that hot comb, I used to have this braid, and I would braid it across, just much like this style, but it would be a braid across and it would hang down. And boy, once I started doing that hair, after a few months, that braid went from being down here to being on the shoulder and then being up here. And then it was just hanging by a thread right by my ear, like no hang time, as the girls say. It was just really wild. Oh, Robin says Miss Whiskers was my first grade teacher. She and she had whiskers. I was gonna ask you that. You beat me to it. And she had whiskers too. I love it. So thank you, EI. And I love that you have that recall, that we're here in this fifth decade of living and that we can recall the names of our first grade teachers is an amazing feat. Because I have the menopause mind now. Once again, a rite of passage. So when I was in my mid 40s, I think it started when I was 45, Sephora. So learning to cook for the first time at 13 years old. Sephora, tell us what you cooked. And Delora, once again, what age were you when you started to do your hair, when your mother gave you permission to really style your hair on your own? You didn't have to wear the two ponytails on the side or whatever she was doing to your hair that maybe you liked or you didn't like. Um, when I think about my menopause journey, it started with perimenopause, of course, or maybe not, of course, for some of you if you're not familiar, because some of us don't even look into it until it's time for us to experience it. And that's a major rite of passage for a woman because a lot shifts. And so uh, I keep stopping and starting because I love all of these comments. So Nigel said, I remember being allowed to walk home from school in the fourth grade with my younger brother. I was responsible for us. Beautiful rite of passage experience. Beautiful, beautiful. So on my menopause journey, it started happening. And even though I'm in the conversation about reproductive health, I talk a lot about the womb and the journey. I just really wasn't present and prepared for it to start so young. So I was 45 and my cycle stopped happening. I'm like, wait a minute, because the thought, maybe not for y'all, but for me, especially from when I was younger, I was like conditioned. It's like, if this period is not coming, wait a minute, I better not be pregnant. But actually, let me rewind that. I had had a tubal ligation, so I wasn't concerned about being pregnant. And I'm trying to remember when I actually did that. I might have been 40 and very clear that I wasn't having any more children. But when I started to have intermittent bleeding and spotting, I was just like, oh my goodness, this is happening. And what was interesting for me, once again, phases and stages, evolution, was that I was very sad about it because a few years prior, I had to start, just before I turned 40, maybe like 38, I had started to really love my cycle. I recognized that the power that I wielded, that I was able to shed old skin and release blood as a powerful demonstration of who I was as a woman. And during that time, I was very intuitive, like when I would bleed. And people are like, oh, premenstrual, but I was like, oh no, I'm actually amplified in my intuitive power, and my antenna are up to really experience life and living more intensely. And so I would actually, once I got clear, like really pay attention to my dreams and just all of that. So I was having this joyful time with my cycle after all of these years of having it and being worried about being pregnant and having an unwanted pregnancy and being concerned about bleeding and not wanting to mess up an outfit. And I finally recognized like the value of my blood was so much bigger than those trivialities. And of course, nobody wants to be embarrassed by bleeding through your clothing or anything like that, or to have like headaches, because I would get headaches. But one of the things that I learned is that I could control the flow of my blood, the smell of my blood, the consistency of my blood, and my moon time, as I grew to call it, with my eating habits. And so, for a major rite of passage experience, one of them was shifting how I ate and how I viewed food. And once I started to eat more live foods and engage in a process of using herbs and things like that, that my cycle totally transformed and I had a handle on it in a way that I never had before. So just thinking about when menopause started to come in, as far as symptomology, um, hot flashes, and itching spells. I went through a whole year of itching spells, and I mean, it was bad. The bottom of my feet and my palms, like itching in places that I never, my scalp. Just it was really bad. And then insomnia. And what was one of the other ones that really drove me crazy? Insomnia, and then mood swings for sure, in a different way than I had experienced when I had my cycle. And so that rite of passage caught me off guard, but it definitely grew me, and it created a place of tuning in with who I am. And it also created, once again, the title, Ritual Roots and Revolution. So I went through a revolutionary experience, as I moved through my menopause journey. um, I recognized that I didn't have access to my roots fully because my mom and my grandmother and my great grandmother, who were alive at the time when all of this happened, did not talk to me about their journeys with their cycles. And so I did not know their blood flow. I did not know whether they had cramps. I did not know whether they experienced a higher level of intuition. I did not know how old they were when they went into menopause. So when I started to experience these symptoms, I'm like, what is wrong with me? This is too early. But it wasn't. The women in my family can have menopause, go into menopause or perimenopausal, in late 30s, early 40s, or mid 40s. But who knew that? Because the rites of passage experiences that the women in my clan had, um, weren't talked about explicitly. In fact, there was a lot of shame and angst and resentment around blood flow and about these shifts. And so it was hidden, and I was impacted because it was hidden. And then once it started happening, I started asking questions. By that, then my later on, when I started asking the questions, my great grandmother had transitioned, but my mom and my her mom were still alive. And so I started asking questions and more was revealed. So for any women in this space who are perimenopausal or have gone through full-blown menopause, or if you're still menstruating and you have a disempowering context or relationship with your menstrual flow, please do write about that. Because when we first got our cycles, right, I was 14, actually got my first flow on the graduation day. I had two rites of passage experiences at the same time. My graduation from junior high school to high school, my cycle came. And I was just like, that's just how my life goes. Like really, really deep and intense things happen. And I had on a white suit with a royal blue top. I didn't bleed through, but I just remember like, oh my gosh, I was saved. I was spared because I know I would have been deeply ashamed and embarrassed if I would have bled through on my graduation day. So the universe spared me that. But it's unforgettable because it was in these two major spaces of shifting and transforming that I experienced this. So once again, women, the subtitle, exploring rites of passage as a gateway to their power. Please do write about when you where you are at in your menstrual flow and what your relationship is with it. And did you view it when you first got it as something that made you powerful? I remember feeling like finally, because I was 14 or almost 14, finally it came because like all my other friends have it and I don't, right? So I was more concerned about that. And then when it did come, it's like, what the hell? I have to deal with all this blood and this, but before that, I was like, oh, I'm not a full blown girl. I'm not mature yet because my body hasn't done this yet. So, Athenia, I've been calling you on and off. I would love for you to come on and then share a little bit yourself since I have another person in this space that I can unpack with. So, tell us about your journey. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay.
So, let's see. So my journey in that process, I was very similar to yours, where I was the last person to get mine out of everyone, my menstrual out of everyone, and my mother had got hers very young. I think she had gotten hers at like 8. So when I didn't get mine, it was kind of I was frantic. So I was constantly, doing research and trying to find out more information and like, is something wrong with me and going through, back and forth with that process. Um, and then when I got it, I'm trying to remember. I think I was on a bus and we were on a trip, which was going to be a week-long trip.
Wow. Wow.
So I wasn't going to be going back home, but I had seen all my friends like have their moments of getting their menstruals and having the whole embarrassment and feeling like, oh my gosh, and then the boys laughing and pointing like, oh, look at you, that whole embarrassment, that preteen embarrassment that you kind of go through. But when I got it, I remember saying, similarly to what you said, like, wow, I'm finally a woman. Like, that was the realization for me, like, wow, that finally happened.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like a conversation. I've heard some of my friends as an adult that talked about like their aunts and grand aunts and grandparents sat them down and they went through a whole process and told them about different things. And I was like, I never experienced that.
Right.
So, just having a daughter now, wanting to kind of put something in place where, when she does have that moment, that it's a sisterly bond that she gets to create. That it's a happy moment, because I feel like so many times when we get our menstrual, it's not seen as a happy rites of passage, but one that's more something to kind of be ashamed or kind of hide from others.
Yeah, thank you for that. All that you shared. I can only imagine what it's like to be away on a trip, which is, like you said, a rite of passage. Like, was it your first trip where you would be away from family like that for that extended period of time without their direct supervision?
No, the school I was going to, they did week-long trips away on a regular basis to like a farm.
Oh,
Um, and so we got to spend like 6 or 7 days on a campus. It was in efforts to kind of get our minds prepared to go for going away to college and being okay with going away to college. So this was maybe our third trip, I want to say, that we
got
have on.
awesome. And when young women, girls that were in are in the age group that you're speaking of, have not been trained and developed to support other girls in that way. Like now, it happens more regularly, but back then, I don't recall my friends. Not that they wouldn't have, but we weren't openly talking about it. It's like, girl, if you need a pad or if you need a tampon, if you need something else, to support you at this time. Like, here you go. It's like so much was hidden. We talked about, oh, I got my cycle, but just like all of the mechanics of caring for it and stuff, that it wasn't openly expressed, or going to the store to buy your feminine products back then. It was just like, let me go and wait until the store is empty and then I can sneak in there and get what I need and then run out. Like, there was so much. It's like a clandestine type of dynamic, or a secret mission to get what you need. And I remember the sanitary napkins being so gigantic too. It's like everybody in the Bible going to know you have that on. There were just so many layers of it that were absolutely not celebratory. And one of the things that I experienced as a rite of passage on a low vibrational level, because I want to make sure that we understand that rites of passage experiences can be both high vibrational and low vibrational, in the sense that you can experience like a devastation, and it takes you from one stage of being and thinking and doing and creating in the world to another. So, some of you on the line are familiar with me, others are not. Like, I just went through a major rite of passage last October when my eldest daughter passed away due to complications associated with giving birth. And I'm definitely not the same person. And, most people were like, oh, has it impacted me in a low vibrational way? Yes, like the grief, the loss has. I miss her terribly, but there's more high vibration around the loss of my daughter than there is low, because first of all, she's an ancestor and she's supporting me all the time. I don't know what y'all all believe. I'm not trying to project my beliefs onto anyone, but my personal belief, she's communicating every day, all day. I'm like, girl, please, I got this. And then the other piece for me is that it has amplified my work in the world and my zest for life. It's like no time is guaranteed. And I always would say that until my daughter passed at 30 years old. I'm like, really? This time is not guaranteed. And Athenia, I don't know if you said it explicitly to the community before I arrived. You might have waited for me to come on, but I know you just experienced a right for yourself with regard to your mate. So some stuff is just like, whoa, and it forces you to take the next step. It forces you to create something that maybe you were like procrastinating on for the longest. Like, I keep saying, I want to have a global impact. I want to have a global impact in reference to my healing work. And her transition has me convicted about that. Not just talking about it, but like creating it, like every day. Like, how am I going to create this? So, when I think of these pieces, I'm led to ask you, Athenia, and then anybody who is still in the space who wants to share, what have been some dark moments in your life, low vibrational experiences that have left you in a space of creating, even though the thing was destructive or hurtful or painful? So, Athenia, what is something, and you might use your recent experience, but there may be something else, because we're always going through something, right? So unmute yourself if you would, and tell us if you have one.
Yeah, so something that happened very recently, right? So on last week, Tuesday, my husband had a stroke, and he's only 40 years of age. And, that was not something that was that we were ready or even, prepared to experience, in our age bracket. And all of our friends in that age bracket, it hit the hard, rightfully so, especially the men. And it was um, amazing to kind of see the level of emotions that the males engaged with hearing about the situation. For me, it helped us to, I guess, come to a different level of understanding for ourselves, right? One, like you said, I think Zipporah has said, like, live every day to the fullest, and continue to be in that space where we are living every day to the fullest and not wasting time, making every moment impactful, making, building relationships, because we know and understand that relationships are the basis for life. Our pastor always talks about, we don't grow in isolation, we only grow in community. And any community, is based off of a group of, or of more than one person. Um, So that rites of passage has, has showed me like this is a new level for me. This is a new place, and where we're no longer, we're not young, the quote unquote, we're not young anymore. So, there are realistic things that could happen, that we typically hear about our grandparents, or even now at our age, our parents going through, whether it be heart attacks or strokes. So hearing, that it's happening now in our age bracket, it's like, okay, what are we focusing on as far as our health? What are we focusing on as far as what we're eating, as far as our diet is concerned? And then what resources are out there that are helping us to support us in those in maintaining that level of life. And so far, we're finding that it's been hard to
Yeah.
figure out. There are not a lot of information out there about, stroke patients, especially not at our range, right?
Right.
And so I don't know. I'm not sure what's gonna come out of this next, but I am always listening and keeping in tune to my ancestors, and to my heavenly Father, because He always directs me in the path that He wants me to go, to take something out of the situation. Um,
Indeed. Yeah. You know, I remember when you and I were corresponding about the experience of the stroke and just how you were communicating. And even though we weren't speaking verbally, I experienced you energetically just having this level of calm about it, and I'm like, shoot, because of everything that's happened prior to his stroke, like you had practice, right? And just all the stuff that you lived through. One of my teachers, and I can't remember who it is, maybe not one of my teachers, but somebody that I lead with and co-facilitate with. Oh, actually, it's my cousin. And then I heard someone else say it. Like every single trauma, experience of wounding, level of devastation that we've gone through, we have tools because we went through it and we're still here, we're still standing. And so if we're just able to tap in, like one thing that we did, we told somebody, one thing that we did, we slept, one thing that we did, we ate nourishing food, one thing that we did, we screamed and cried, or we read books, or we asked people to give us a moment, like whatever that is, like those are skill sets that have been developed. But sometimes we move from devastation to devastation and we operate in a disconnected fashion. We don't go back and fetch what we learned from the previous experiences. And so when my daughter passed, one of the things that was very clear for me is that, girl, you talk about your purpose all the time, you talk about living it to your last breath, and do that no matter what, death, loss, do it no matter what. And so that's my commitment. I can cry, I can grieve and I can lead. I can grieve and I can make love. I can grieve and I can, go to a water park and have a good time. It doesn't mean that they have to happen in isolation and separately from one another. So, and everybody has their own journey. I'm not trying to say that this is the way to do it. I'm just saying it's a way to engage in a low vibrational rites of passage so you can actually grow and transform in it, and it doesn't take you out of here. And you can literally be taken out and still be walking around breathing. Like I have been in spaces in my life, seasons in my life where I was like the walking dead, and it ain't pretty. It's not, like getting up like a robot, going to work every day, just going through the motions and not really living, just breathing and existing. And so just encourage people to lean in when rites of passage experiences happen that feel like this is the end of the world. And it could very well feel that way, but as long as you're alive and still moving, even in an apocalypse, we can figure out how to continue. So just thinking about the title again. Oh, so Niger, I was 12 when I got my cycle for the first time at school. I remember my mother being so uncomfortable and having the conversation with me about what was happening with my body. I can see it clearly. She made her bed for the entire conversation, not looking at me. It didn't feel like a celebration or something positive at all. Oh my goodness. So Nigel, I keep giving y'all more and more to do. You and anybody else, like what emotions do you carry as a result of that rite of passage experience of having your menstrual cycle arrive and be present in your life and in your body, and then the rite of passage of your mother talking to you about it, and then her awkwardness in the conversation. I'm so grateful that I learned from what was not given to me, because when my daughter's cycles came and they were in the rites of passage program that I co-ran, and yeah, Robin and others supported that, called it was the business is Spirit of a Woman, and that Rites of Passage program was called Spirit of a Woman, and it was for girls between the ages of 12 to 16. And we celebrated their cycle. I was so mad that my eldest daughter was in the South with her dad when she got her cycle, and he acted like a straight fool. Like, what am I supposed to do? And just acting, saying crazy stuff. So she called me. She was just like, "Ma, I don't know." And she was 8 or 9. I think she was 9. Um, and so it came earlier than mine. Like I told you, I got mine. I was almost 14. So we did a celebration virtually, and then when she came back, just acknowledged it. But boy, her father just totally not aligned with like talking about better not get pregnant. Just different things that women also say. Now, when I was growing up, after my cycle came and it was known to the family, it was like keep your panties up and your skirt down. Like that was the affirmation, and I'm using air quotes because there was nothing affirming about that. And I was viewed as a potential problem because I had my menstrual cycle, and I'm just like, okay, now I've arrived somewhere. And then little did they know, one of the rites of passage experiences that I had was that I had experienced molestation. So before my cycle came, I had already been exposed to sex and sexual things. And so them to be concerned about me having a menstrual cycle, I'm like, you should have been concerned about the shit that happened with these people that you entrusted to care for me. That's what you should be worried about. But the blood flow triggered worry. And I became somebody to watch after that. So, Nigel, I tried to recreate a better experience for my daughter, but she didn't want it. She didn't even tell me when she got it until months later. I felt so cheated and didn't understand. Yeah, Athenia, as a mom of girls or a girl, I can't remember.
I have one. I have one girl and two
Okay, how old
boys.
is your girl? Oh
She's
my
3.
goodness, so you have a while. But just growing up, like you had cousins and oh, you have
Hmm.
sisters. I can't remember. Oh my goodness!
I'm the only girl.
Wow,
So, it
wow.
was just me and my
So
mother.
just thinking about what Nye just said, and then also what your if you've been thinking ahead about the plan for your daughter in reference to this major celebration, her flowering time, her moon time, like what's on your mind in reference to negotiating that space? Like what rituals will you create? What roots will you plant? And how will you revolutionize it so it's not the same experience that you had?
Well, I think I was expressing a little bit earlier. I want to, make it a celebration as far as getting some of the elders together and kind of talk about their experiences with their, getting their menstrual their first time.
Mhm.
Also, I'm envisioning it also to be, like the birds and bees conversation as well. Starting that platform, because I feel like in schools now they're starting to have that conversation a lot earlier on, and I would rather her have that conversation with us, with her grandmother, with her aunt, my brother's wives, and just making it a space where they know that there are a bunch of females who have gone through the same experience that you can go and reach out to, to talk about any instance that might be of concern. Um, I think the problem starts to lie when we feel like we don't have anyone we can talk to, and making sure that she knows and understands that there are. If you don't feel comfortable speaking with me, that's okay. You have your godparents for a reason. You have your aunts and uncles, your grandparents. There are a number of women who are out there to support you. And I feel like a lot of us as women don't always understand or don't always see that. We always feel we have to keep it to ourselves. Just like was it Naja said. Her daughter, kept it to herself,
Hmm.
and that creates a space that is not that I feel is not always healthy.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not just what we say, is what we don't say. And then also we can say a whole bunch and create the framework for our daughters, our sons, because it's not just a conversation for young women. I think it's important, equally as important for young men to understand and know that a major rite of passage for young women is their menstrual cycle. I think young men not having that understanding, they don't understand the magnitude of what's happening when they engage and are in relationship with women. Like this is part of our journey, not just the sexual journey, but just our beingness as women and just being conscious of it and sensitive about where we are at on our flow and our cycle. Sephora, I got mine at 9, and I'm the oldest of my mom's 5 kids, and she had no reply, but that now you will get pregnant if any boy touches you, right? So you put his little finger on your forehead, like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. Butt brushes up against you in the hallway. I'm pregnant. Like we were taught some stuff. Well, we were back then, and some of it is probably still happening. That is insane. Support. Just last school year, I had to have the birds and bees conversation with my son because a friend gave him the wrong information. I had to correct it. He is only 10. So listen, my son got access to, with using the phones, porn, um, and just became like caught up. And he told me, yes, just yesterday, he was like, he friends exposed him, like they told him where it was at, and then he was just like, I can find this myself. We were just talking about how a rite of passage, like being exposed to sex or sensuality or sexual things. And for some young people, it's younger than others. And it might be a journey with self, like, masturbation, just like that's a rite of passage. And we're so resistant when it comes to these things. But their exposure and who's providing the information can make or break their viewpoint about the relationship, partnership, sex, intimacy, because we get those twisted. You can be intimate and never lay a hand on anybody, never touch anyone, and so to be 9 or 10 and given information that's misinformation about your sexual beingness can walk with you for the rest of your life, because some people never transform that viewpoint and that way of being when they get it at a very young age, that information, before they can process adequately. Dolores said my mom spoke to my brother and I together and educated us both together long before anyone else did, so we felt comfortable for the most part coming to her about things like that. That's so awesome. Yeah, I spoke to my daughters together, but I recognized that there was a different way of being with my son. And I'm like, where's this inequity coming from? Like, I wasn't as readily, I wasn't as open to negotiating the space with my son as I was with my daughters. And I think part of that is just my own angst around negotiating space with men. My son, very nice looking young man, not just because he's my son. I hear it all the time. Oh, he's so handsome. And girls like liking him like since he was really little, adult women like, oh, your son, and just not being fully comfortable with it and wondering what I needed to say and just getting choked up, not tearfully but choked up around like just comfort level. So just thinking about his own rite of passage experiences, it's like I need to be involved with that too, and also his dad and other brothers to support him. But I think there's something to be said about moms being willing to have these conversations with their sons, so the conversation can be balanced and they can hear from different perspectives. And we're not always equipped to do that. We're not always willing to do that. We don't always get the opportunities to do that. So Aisha, having 3 boys, I explained both changes of boys and girls with them, which was important to me that they understood both sexes' journey. Yes. And now we live in a society where it's not automatic, like the gender binary is not existent now. Like we have all of these different ways to identify oneself on sexually, gender based. And I don't have an attachment to any of it. I just know in my work, I do anti-racist work, so social justice work. It's important to be able to be inclusive as much as we can, and that's a rite of passage for this nation. Like, even when we're in meetings now, it's just like, what gender pronouns would you like for us to use? And some people use they, them, there's Z, or there's just different ways to identify ourselves. And we're in a whole new world, and our children are in that. So if you're not comfortable talking about the gender binary of girl and boy and genitals, vagina, penis, what the hell are you going to do when it's ambiguous, or when it's not as clearly defined, right? Or it's clearly defined and you're just not in that conversation. It just makes it really challenging just to be able to be with people and get ready. Like even how we read material, like the language, he, her, him, his, like it's going to shift and transform. And are we ready for it? So Athenia, I see you nodding. You could come off and say what you choose to say about like a collective rite of passage and shift. And some of us are like, no, 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 no. Sometimes we're thrust into it and we're not ready. So if you want to share anything about that, you can unmute.
Yeah. I was saying my son goes to a charter school, and one of the things that they did is they included in the charter school a portion of their day once a week that they were going to be talking about, the
Mm,
sexuality, educating them about all areas of sexuality. And it was such a big uproar amongst a lot of the families, because the biggest, issue was, what are you going to be, talking to my child about? And, I want to be able to have that conversation. I want my church to be able to have that conversation, because, the my views work for church, and having sexuality conversations might be different than what you're
yeah,
presenting in school. And but for them, it was really just trying to give them a space, and to make sure that if there were any questions, that they had a space to speak to a psychologist, or to be heard, basically, so that they didn't feel like they were not normal, or not comfortable in their skin. And I appreciated that to that extent. But I just remember everybody, in the background, all of the parents in chat groups, and we're just going back and forth about, a number of different, how this could go wrong. And I'm
yeah,
like, well, how could it go right? Like, what are the ways that it could go right? Like,
right,
I'm like, this is not the first session that they've had. They've had a number of students that have gone through it already, and we didn't hear any backlash about it. So I assumed that it wasn't that
yeah,
bad.
yeah,
So that was in a collective way, a couple of thousands of parents having to engage in that conversation. And now that we're remote, um, when my husband was when we had the stroke, I didn't really explain to the kids in detail. I just told them, daddy is sick, he's in the hospital. So, but we had told all our other family members. And when he had came home, my oldest was like, yeah, I know, could you explain to me what a stroke is? Because, I know daddy had a stroke. And I'm like, well, how did you, find that out? And he's like, my cousins told me, because their parents, told them. So they had texted him or emailed him, or they were playing games, and so he was having conversations with his cousins. So it's like, technology right now is moving a lot faster than
right,
than we expect. So it wasn't a space that I was in, and now it's made me more conscious that, yeah, he is older, and I need to have, those conversations up front with him, and not, try to hide behind, um to when I'm more comfortable, because when I'm more comfortable is not when they need to know it.
indeed. Just thinking about, well, I'll read what Nigel wrote, and then I'll share about Moja, unity, like the name of this space and this Juneteenth journey, just thinking about rites of passage and what you just brought forth. But Nigel said, I've talked with both of my sons openly about their bodies. My youngest son is so comfortable, I guess, talking to me about his body. He comes to me when he has a painful erection that hasn't been the most comfortable for me, but I'm glad he is comfortable. I think, like, I think, you can check in, you can ask the question for sure. You know, um, my son also, he was in a space of just wanting to show his body. He was in a rite of passage experience, where he was thicker, chubbier when he was younger, and not satisfied with that. And as his body evolved and he became leaner, and then, hair in different places and muscle building up, like, look, with the voice. Because first it was like, then it turned into this man's voice. I was like, oh my goodness. So that transformation, that maturation is a rite of passage experience. So once again, just wanting to presence everyone, whether you're just joining the conversation, if you've been in since the beginning, that we're talking about ritual roots and revolution. We're talking about women exploring rites of passage as the gateway to their power. And like, the more informed that we are about these moments in time, like being deliberate and intentional about them, the more we recognize the necessity to assess like how we've grown or not based on these rites of passage experiences, the more empowered and powerful we are in our lives. And where I want to pivot to, and this is on me, because Athenia, I didn't ask you like about how the structure played out. So I was all in my Zoom head and like, oh, this is what I'll do. I'll share this and do that. And this is a different StreamYard is a different platform. But I'm like, once again, being able to pivot. So the structure is not the way I had intended, but I'm like, oh, this is cool. I get an opportunity to give this piece in a modified version. So I would love, before I do anything else, to unpack Umoja, what the selection of that particular principle. I want to hear from you and what right maybe you experienced that had you say this needs to be created for the community. So you may be processing it in the moment. Maybe no one has ever asked you, but I'm like just thinking about rites of passage and then your selection of that particular principle and how it aligns with this conversation about rights, so.
Yeah, sure. So I wanted, when I was creating the name for my business, I wanted to kind of come to find a name that meant something, and everybody's always like, you want to find a name that's gonna live on through the different stages of your business. And when every year during Kwanzaa, my best friend, her family would hold the Kwanzaa celebration, and I would attend, and I would learn about the different, each day. And Umoja always stuck with me, and I know it's the first day, and I'm the first child, right? So that was my first connection. And then the other part was when I got married, my husband, something that my husband always talked about is that, he's like, your family is a family. Like you do things together. Like you guys are always supporting each other. He says, even when you guys are not on the same page, when y'all are upset with each other, when y'all are frustrated, he said, when a holiday or a birthday comes around, y'all put it aside and y'all are there for each other to share space. And
Okay.
he's always, talked about that. So that coming togetherness has always been a core for me. And so and unity um is another part of what we always do as a Black community. We're always coming together. Even when we were in slavery, we came together for church services. We came together for work. We came together, when we were doing the trades. Like everything was about working together in one group. And when it came to putting events together, I was like, every event is bringing people together in unity.
Right.
And that might not be the goal of what other people see it, but whether we're creating a wedding, whether we're doing a birthday party, we're doing a community event or a funeral, our goal is to bring people together in a unified manner so that that they become on one accord. And that has expanded and continues to expand in different spheres and different spaces. And Juneteenth was just another one of those spaces because it wasn't something that a lot of people were familiar with. And we've been doing it for 11 years. And now this year, 2020, again, right? 2020 is about clarity. So
Yeah.
everybody got that aha moment. And
Yes.
I got so many text messages, so many calls like, thank you. You were the first person I ever heard talk about Juneteenth. Like you were the first person that ever, mentioned this to us. And even in that space, when my vendors came together, it was always about how can you guys support each other? How can you work together? Even though we're here as vendors, we're all trying to make money. How are you supporting one another beyond today, beyond this day of Juneteenth, June 19th, to have a festival? How are you supporting each other past that date? So unity is just continue to be, a stronghold of my core values.
That's right. What comes up for me, and you mentioned it earlier, just thinking about the season that we're in and how 2020 opened up and how it's unfolding, and we're almost out of it. Like we're in the fall almost, like literally the weather has already jumped forward. So unity in the family, when I think of rites of passage experiences, how families are impacted when there is a death, rite of passage, when there is financial strife, rite of passage. I remember last year, your family, no, that was this year, experienced a fire, rite of passage. Um, like, we don't think of these things because we're not trained and developed and supported in understanding or acculturated to get this. But I also want to be responsible and accountable of talking about more formalized rite of passages that are designed to take people through one phase and stage of development to another. So Nigel shared earlier, for those of you who weren't here, that she's about to join the rites of passage, that I'm the vessel by which it came through. Because I'm like, oh, my rites of passage. I'm like, no, Spirit gave this, the Creator gave this, and I'm a vessel that it came through. And so it's called Be the Tree Rites of Passage Collective, because something about being the tree, like, how trees, you can see the surface, like, you don't see the roots. Some of the roots, like I'm looking at a tree outside my window right now, go for miles and you don't even know. And that reminds me of women, like the networks, the connection, the reach, that grandma True True, you don't even know who she knows, right? And you don't even know what the hookups are that she has. Unless somebody gets sick or there be a need and she just talking on her what we call it, I forget the name of it, but it's like almost like a phone tree, like, calling this one and this one calls that one, and you don't even know it came from Grandma True True, but that's the juice that she has because she's a tree and she's deeply rooted and she has connections. But I'm talking about the roots even around this, but the branches, like, it's the same sort of conversation about the networks that you're connected to. And some of us keep our networks very contained, like it's just about our family. And boy, when I went through my rite of passage experience when my daughter transitioned, if it wasn't for my relationship with community and my son-in-law's relationship with community and just the folks that we knew and my daughter knew, we all knew collectively, I don't know what would have happened with regard to the celebration of a life. We would have definitely had it. And it would have been stellar, but I'm just like, how much easier it was for us to grieve and be in the space because so many people, thousands of people, showed up in different ways, whether it was virtually or bringing dishes to the house or just showing up to dance and perform, because our family is a performing arts family. Like, it was amazing. And so if I would have just kept my gifts of the daughters and my gift of my son and the gifts that I've been given in this lifetime, whether they art or how I think and stuff like that, to myself or just for my family, just the limited scope of life operating from that place. And I don't judge people who do it. I just want them to look at how's it working? What's the impact when we show up that way? So be the tree, the trunk, the foundation, that allows for you to even fathom doing a Juneteenth offering or fathom having a business of your own. Like, you tell me, Athenia, was there any seeds that were planted by your clan or by your extended network that had you say, yes, I can start a business? Because, none of this is on our own volition. Like, it's impacted with seeds. And I want to acknowledge, like, who actually contributed to the idea. So, while you think, because I see you thinking about it, even if it's something that you watched, because we live interdependently. And so when I think about rights, oh,
Yeah.
you got it? You figured it out?
Yeah, I would say
Yes.
my grandfather because he had a
Mm-hmm.
boiler business, and and every Saturday, I guess part of my ritual was to go out with him every Saturday, and I was his little secretary in the car. I made sure I had all his quarters, and I had his beeper for when the calls came
Yes.
in, and I was writing down the messages, and this is before cell phones. But he was the first person I ever knew to have a cell phone,
Yes.
in his car, and it was a big book bag. So I would definitely want to say him, seeing how hit that fueled our holidays, and for Christmas, and how that fueled the church and supported the church, and being a deacon, and supported the family, so it showed me he was able to be flexible. He was able to kind of be around his family and manage his time. And I always, I guess in my mind, I was like, I want that. He didn't have to answer to anyone but the work that he did or didn't do correctly.
Yeah.
And It was about him, keeping a good name, and and he was a godly man. So God is a God of order, and so that's something that he always wanted to present himself with. So that, I feel like that was passed down to me, and definitely a part of how I guess I was seeded and even believing that it could be possible that I could have my own business and run a family off of it.
Yeah, that's amazing. You reminded me of my own rite of passage experience with my own grandfather, too. He had a business in the basement, but because he didn't trust, because he grew up in abject poverty, in the South, he was sharecropper's son. So that life of like deep, deep poverty and like working just to give back the money to the person who owned the land that they were sharecropping. And so he had a business in the basement, a printing business, and he worked for a printer in Long Island. And I was his secretary too, always really smart, great with numbers, like, talk like I was a grown woman. So I would answer the phone and ride around with him and take orders and all this other stuff. And I didn't even think about that, Athenia, as my rite of passage experience or activating a thought to be entrepreneurial, because I had always been taught get a good job with benefits, right? And so he never said that to me. He never said that, but he modeled working a full-time job and then also having a business. Like, so I would imagine he thought like, shoot, just in case this hustle don't work out, I got to have a job with benefits so I can have insurance and all this other stuff. But that I really must pay homage to my grandfather. I had not considered him as a catalyst for me to be entrepreneurial, but he absolutely was and is. He passed many years ago, but I'm going to start writing about that and being present to that and vocalizing that more, because I talk more about the women in my family than I talk about the men. And this just thinking about unity, so family, the major rite of passage experiences that we have with family, and the catalyst for manifesting the Rites of Passage program when it was for young women of color between the ages of 12 to 16, and that was back in 2002, was a young girl in our community at the church had contracted an STD in the throat. She had gonorrhea of the throat. And I mean, we talk about this a lot. Me and my former business partner that co-created the Rite of Passage program and the business together, that it was on the strength of that low vibrational experience for her and her family that we recognized we need to stop talking about what's going wrong and what the problem is and actually be about the business of manifesting something to make a difference. And so we designed on July 4th, 2002, Spirit of a Woman Rites of Passage Collective for girls between the ages of 12 to 16 and their families. Because you could have it like, just like people are waking up, their rite of passage, like you drop your kids off at school and like let them, take care of and teach my child. And now here we are having to teach our children and recognizing like we ain't built for that life. Major rite of passage for us. It's like, oh my God, so it's scary too, because not everybody has the skill set. Like some of us are clear that if we were our child's teachers, that it wouldn't go well. Like some of us, like I stopped trying to teach my oldest daughter or work with her on homework because I was so hard. I would take it personally if she didn't know how to write well, or I would take it very personally because I know how to do this. Like you should know because you're my child, and it created a lack of confidence in her. So even when she spoke, she would be looking at me like, is that okay? Is that okay? Without verbally saying it, her anxiousness around it told me I needed to chill and fall back. We talked about it and laughed about it when she became an adult, but she was like, yeah, I was concerned about getting it right for sure. And it just created this lack of confidence as it related to academic things. And she was super smart. It just landed. It just came out differently than my own intellectual ability. So, rites of passage, when I think about the design, um, you come together as a collective. When it comes to young people, it's more of a secret process. Like when I think of like African traditions where rites of passage is practiced, the coming of age for the girls and the young men, or for the young women and the young men, is that someone takes them away, like a group of elders who have been there, done that, been designated as the leaders, take them off. So rites of passage is about separation from the general community for a spell. And I can't do that with adult women, not fully. But what we do is we take the women and we have a set amount of time weekly to really start to unpack some of the stuff that's low vibrational that we've taken in. So things we believe about ourselves, things we believe about our family of origin, things we believe about other women. Because you know how many women I've heard tell me I don't like women? I'm like, yo, you don't like yourself. Like, seriously. Adina, you were one of them? I didn't remember that. So unmute. I want to hear about that.
Yeah. I mean, initially, and through the rites of passage, ended up understanding where that kind of stemmed from. But yeah, initially I was like, I don't like being around females. I mean, like I said, I grew up in a house of all guys. I was always around, either my father, my grandfather, or my brothers. Even when I, went outside to play with friends, it's like I wanted to hang out with the guys because they were less catty. They spoke their mind. The guys that I were around, they spoke their truth. If they didn't like somebody or like what somebody, they didn't like how a girl responded to them, they were gonna say something about it. And I became that way. And when I spoke to other females, they just I was too raw for them. And so it became a dissonance of that I constantly had to battle. And so I would remove myself from being around other females. And even when I was in elementary school, it was always, it's like, I just want to be around the guys because they're cool. And it's like the girls are like, oh, you're trying to steal my man. And I'm like, I don't want him. Like, that's not my, I don't, you
Right.
know, sex wasn't on my mind. Like, I had other things going on. I've always had other things going on. And so, for me, I've always been focused on a goal and what's going to get me there. And guys was definitely not one of them. Like, it wasn't like, oh, this is my come up, kind of thing. But the girls that I would, that I would engage with, that was always there. Oh, I gotta find me a guy that has money or has a car, and I was like, they're people just like us. Like, why are we trying to take advantage of them when we don't want somebody to take advantage of us that way? So, in my mind, I couldn't get past that. That was the mindset of other females, and I also saw females as being weak, and that was based on what I saw with my mother at the time.
Yeah.
She didn't strike me as a person that was strong. She's since grown exponentially, and I'm so proud of where she's gotten. But that went through her own series of rites of passages that she had to go through. And so those all compounded to create my ideas of what a female was. And I wasn't happy with it. The only female that I saw that was strong was my grandmother. And she was like, a god. It was like, she was perfect in everything that she did. She always kept a clean house. She always, she didn't take no stuff. She raised 3 kids, and my grandfather was always out working. She made sure that they went to church. They were in choir. She would, Sunday school, everything having, she was, she was it. Anything that
Yeah.
you could think of, she built, maintained relationships, like everything that you would think of as a good person. She embodied that. And to me, it was like, I can't touch that. Like, that's the goal.
Yeah.
So that those were the different levels for me.
Yeah. You know, from the framework of Umoja and also the framework of Juneteenth, as you were sharing inside of the rites of passage experience when we worked with the young women, 12 to 16, we had to talk about our historical framework, so that they could get context about some of their resistance to just being with each other as young women. And so this is part of our lineage, unfortunately, especially those who come from this country, and then also folks who are part of the diasporic experience. But here in particular, we lived in a situation where our love relationships were dictated to us. Like, we were used like chattel, like cattle. So, you mate with this one because you have good hips and a strong back, and you pick this much cotton. And so this, I'm using the language of the of those, that period and that time, which is a scourge on our history, but it's real. That's what happened. Like, this buck, he works hard, he's tall, and we're going to put you together like this. You're not intended to create intimacy. You definitely can't call yourselves married. You can't declare that you have any type of ties other than being on this plantation. And at any given moment, we can sell you, we can sell your kids. And so when I think about Juneteenth, which is late in the game, they discovered that they was actually free. I'm grateful that they discovered it, but I'm like, damn, you know, when I think about our people being like set free, so to speak, when we really weren't. The level of trauma, the level of wounding, the level of I don't know who I am and just feeling invisible, feeling less than, feeling scared, like all of that stuff gets compounded in the body. But when we're talking about relationships and how women show up, we were taught that we didn't have value. And then also at any given moment, I can have a connection with someone that's on the plantation too, but neither one of us can. Right, you're ripped apart. That compete, compare, and despair was indoctrinated, and so you can grow life in your body, and you can't hold on to it because it doesn't belong to you. There's so many layers that have impacted, so many rites of passage experiences that have impacted our humanity. And so when I think about women, I always think that a womb inside of a womb, inside of a womb, inside of a womb has me be here. And so I have nothing, even though my mother, she had her struggles. I'm like, that womb space is the space where I developed and I have life because of her. And then her mother, and then her mother. I'm like, oh my gosh, how many wombs is that? We I don't even know how far back to go. Right. So just absolutely amazing. And so I celebrate women just for that. Like without the womb space, we wouldn't be here with all the crap that happens with life. And even it's funny, the term female, I crack up when I hear it because I'm like, the only place you see that actually is on forums. Like you check it. So when people call each other that, I was like, what? Female? But I'm just like, I crack up too because when I was born, they didn't put my name on my birth certificate. All it was female Benton. So I say, oh, that's not female. That's Famale. That's my name. Famale Benton because I'm crazy. So just thinking about the power that we wield, I'm just like, who would not want to know about that? And we could be messy. I can be messy. I can be jealous. I can be overbearing and controlling and all of that stuff. But ultimately, when I come back here again, because I don't think it's over once I'm done with this body. I think I'm coming back. Come make me a woman every single freaking time. I feel like men have so many limitations. They don't to access their emotions. I'm like, listen, y'all keep doing that over here. I want to be a woman every single time. So, just interested if anyone is there, because I don't know, you can see Facebook and you can see what's happening. If anybody wants to share about just rites of passage and that structure. And as we wait and see what people have to say, I will share that once again, part of the rites of passage journey is to teach women how to acknowledge the power that we wield. And so when I do introductions to the Be the Tree Rites of Passage Collective, I go through the 3 phases of womanhood and I look at all of the energy and the power that women bring when they're maidens, when they're in that early stage from 0 to 25 years old. And whether y'all notice or not, your brain is not fully developed until 25. And that's only if it's a normal, developing brain, because we have brain injury, all kinds of things that organically happen with us that keep us from being fully mature, physically, emotionally, mentally, psychologically. And then from 26 to 60, the mother phase. And then the final phase from 60 plus to your last breath on the planet, which is the crone phase. And I'm like, when I think about all of those phases, not only do I have them in me, like my teenage maiden self is still inside of this 51-year-old body. And sometimes she is present and she's acting up and she doesn't serve me because she's triggered back to an old way of being. I might hear a song that reminds me of when I was a kid and I was angry. And sometimes she reminds me, like, girl, you still got it. Like, we got it. Like, what the hell are you operating like you're not beautiful? You're not smart. Like, your life is over. You're 51. There's so much left in you. And my grandmother died at 101. Oh, not my grandmother, my great grandmother. And her mother passed at 104. So if I don't get it together, I got what? What is that? 50 more years on the planet. I better act like I got some sense, you know? So the rite of passage journey is embracing all of that. And when I think of, like I said, young women on the journey, whether it's in Africa or India, or where they happen to do these and rituals and engage in these root oriented and revolutionary experiences to manifest power, I just think about the fact that you're being given a set of tools that's going to carry you for a lifetime. The language of your community, how you dress, how you get to do your hair, just how you negotiate space as you prepare for manifesting partnership, like intimate partnership. how you get to be in school, how you get to posture yourself as you learn, whether you give back to the community once you get your, so to speak, your education and the credentials and the experience. Like those things are missing. Like it's in this society and under white supremacy, it's like every man and woman for themselves. But inside of a rites of passage experience where culture is injected and it's aligned with collective consciousness and the unity of family, community, nation, and race, nothing you do is outside of the powerful cipher of family, culture, community, and race. And we are losing that. And COVID-19 and how some of us have shown up inside of that is a demonstration of that. Anytime you start thinking that you're generating independently instead of interdependently, then you're already lost. Because everything that I do, like tuning in here, like I wouldn't have been able to get in here if Athenia didn't create it, and if she didn't have her business in the Juneteenth experience, if we didn't know each other because she did the rites of passage and contributed to my business by paying her tuition, and like all of these layers is interdependent living. Anything that you believe that's outside of that is not true. What we eat, like my food in the refrigerator, which I need to replenish, but I'm only able to replenish it because people show up at the factory or wherever they at, and they package it and they send it and ship it. Like our entire lives, me taking the train or the bus or riding in a car and getting gas, interdependent living. It's Umoja embodied in everything that we do. Like unity allows our lives to work. So, Athenia, I don't know if you want to share anything about this. Please do jump in if you want, or if you have somebody else that shared and you want to share what they shared.
No,
Like,
I don't see anybody. I'm good.
and I know not everybody, it's a weekday, not everybody can contribute, could co-create a conversation for from 2 to 4 when you're working a job, you got to make calls. And even though we're home, we still got to act like we have some sense, right? So just thinking about, just explicitly about another rite of passage experience that you were exposed to COVID. So what did you learn from
Mhm.
that experience?
Sure. Let's see. What did we learn from that that process? So COVID in itself was a eye-opening experience for a lot of people, and we, I guess, uh, jumped on the bandwagon earlier on. We learned to find our voice. I'll definitely say that. Both my husband and I went from a space where we were hiding behind you just hiding behind the curtains, to and only showing like I talked about earlier, the perfection, right? With social media, all we see is the good parts of life. We don't always see the other parts. So I learned about being okay with imperfection, because if we continue to wait for the perfected time, it'll never come. And I think that's what kind of stunts a lot of us a lot of times, because we're like, I don't want to buy the house because my credit is not 100%, or I don't have a lot of money saved up in the bank, or I don't want to have a child until I get married, or until we start to create all of these things in our mind. And then when life happens, we have to change that thought in our mind. So when COVID happened for us and our family, it was definitely a change, because in everything in me was about being scared that we were going to have it, and how was it going to affect us, and how was it going to affect the family, the kids, and would we get past it. And then once we did have it, it was, how do we continue to live, how do we continue to find reasons to want to live, to find spaces beyond, beyond things. And it's like, all you really had, right, was Facebook. So you're watching Facebook, and you're either seeing people, in my circle, that is, that were pivoting their businesses. So you see all of these webinars of people talking about how they're changing their business. And, I'm sick and I'm like, I don't have the mental capacity to even do that right now. And the other conversations that I was seeing was people dying or family members dying or people
Yeah.
going into the hospital and not coming out. And so those were the two worlds in which I was living in at the time. And both of them were not a good place, and I consider myself to be a good place type person. But it was hard. It was hard to be in that space when you were constantly seeing death literally at your door, and every day and every moment, people who were in my age range who were dying. My godbrother passed, my best friend's mom passed. A couple of my customers who were near and dear to my heart, who I'm always checking in on, and a couple who we just did a retirement party for, they passed. Like, it was like they had all of these thoughts of life, that they worked so hard and that they were going to retire and then they were going to go and start to enjoy life. And here COVID happens and they never got to start to enjoy life. And so it helped us to come to a reality that, no matter where we are, that at that moment we have to find the silver lining to enjoy life. Every being home, we with the kids, it was like we're having movie nights and we're putting the black light on and we're playing music and we're and taking pictures to commemorate the moment. Even when my husband had the stroke, I'm taking pictures throughout to commemorate the moment, not because I'm looking to share it with anybody on Facebook, but I wanted him to see his progress. I wanted him to see where, God took him from and where he's at now. And to sometimes our mind plays tricks on us and we don't remember those things. And it's not until you see a picture and I'm like, wow, that really happened. You talked about falling off the bed and, at a young age. And my brother has that same experience. He fell off the table, and but we have a picture of him being on the table at one point in a rocker. So that triggers something in him every time he sees that. He's like, I remember when I fell off the table, kind of thing. So it's like our mind, so I say all of that to say that that's kind of been our transition with COVID, and just our rites of passage with changing how we operate and how we move forward.
Yeah, so powerful. And just thinking about you having the skill set, once again, going back to what I said earlier, having the skill set that was established, whether it was conscious or unconscious, formal or informal, from previous experiences with trauma and
Mhm,
loss, and
mhm,
just being caught off guard about how life can show up and you just don't expect it. And this year in particular, the fire, the experience of COVID, and then the losses and the deaths and just different things that you've experienced and witnessed and held space for others to move through. And then, this happens to him. And I'm
mhm.
convinced that you already came with your toolbox from
Mhm.
way before this year,
Yeah.
2020, and then also got expanded inside of everything that was happening, like back to back, like in your face. And once again, when you're part of a culture and a community where you've been taught how to be in different instances, in some rites of passage, it wouldn't be me leading it, just keeping it real, just learning how to cook the basic meals. Like that would never be me, but somebody in the group would be teaching that, just like how to care for yourself and care for your family. Just the rite of passage around knowing the history, because some of the stuff that we get in school is not aligned with our history. I do a lot of anti-racist work, and I train and develop leaders in institutions and staff and stuff around
Mhm.
this work. And one of the things that I discovered in my doing the work is that Texas dictates, the state of Texas and the leadership there and the school system dictates what's in our books, our history book, all the books in the
Mhm.
educational system across the country. So can you imagine Texas mindset
Wow.
dictating what New York mindset gets to read and navigate? Like I was shocked. But they have the most revenue, and because they generate and buy so many books, it's a large state.
That's
when
so
when
interesting.
the when the folks who create the books are doing it, they have Texas in mind because they know they're going to make the most money
Most
from that.
money there. Yeah.
Yeah, so shocked, shocked in the sense that I didn't know that, but not shocked just based on how the system works. So if you are not, and I think this comes from a leader in the Jewish culture, it's like one of the, or maybe it's maybe not. It might be come from Malcolm X, but if you have the oppressor educating your children, then what do you think your children are going to be operating from or living their lives by? It's not the
Mm.
doctrine of your culture in alignment with your worldview and your family core values. Or maybe I'm not going to say they throw them completely out the window, but a huge overlay is going to be the oppressive thought. And we live in this induced culture, and part of what dictates this culture is the framework around whiteness. These systems were designed that way. And you might ask, like, why is this injected in the conversation about rites of passage? It's absolutely a foundational piece that you need to understand and know your history and where you come from in order for you to be immersed in a rite of passage program and actually get something out of it. So all women gathering, even though it's a diverse program and many women from different walks of life come, it's not just for women of color. I think the context for a white woman to understand what this system is about and how white privilege is injected into it is just as important as a woman of color understanding how oppression has impacted her growth and development as a woman in the world. So both are important on this journey, and we need allyship across the aisle, politically, and then also across culture and race, in order for us to shift and turn this thing from upside down to right side up. So, in my minutes that I have left, I want to talk about the Be the Tree Rites of Passage Collective for Women. And Athenia, if you could absolutely help me inside of this. So, inside of a conversation about ritual roots and revolution, I think about Be the Tree and how we immerse ourselves in the journey of having rituals and containers for our sessions. So every session, you can count on specific things happening. You can count on the language that we use to describe the leaders. You can count on us using the language and the tools and distinctions of the program to guide and support one another and coach one another as we move through the process. And even after we're finished, it's a language that we use, songs that we sing, and just what we engage in, like our covenant. So just thinking about that for yourself and inside of this topic today, ritual, roots, and revolution. I know you come with your own lived experience, your own family background, your own culture, your own religious and spiritual practice, and all of that. And then Be the Tree was just there to support and amplify everything that you had. So when you think of ritual and Be the Tree, what comes up for you? When you think of roots, what comes up for you? And when you think of revolution, what comes up for you as it relates to Be the Tree and your rites of passage journey and participation?
So the first one you said was ritual.
Yeah.
What comes up for me? So ritual came up for me as far as Be the Tree with a collective dance, where people had to come together and learn to dance and be on one accord. Um, um, Song was another way that comes up to me as far as ritual, and also almost like a Sunday dinner, where one of my favorite TV shows used to be, oh my gosh, what was it?
Soul,
Yes, Soul
soul
Food.
food.
Yep. That was my favorite shows, and how they always used to come over to Mama's house on Sunday and sit down and start to have conversation and talk about their issues and life's work, and that was also part of that. I looked forward to every Sunday or whatever day, coming together with a group of ladies and exploring my week, exploring my life, and um where my next steps were to be. What was the next one you asked about? You said rituals,
Roots.
roots. So when you talked about roots, and as far as Be the Tree was concerned, um well, everything about Be the Tree is about roots, right? Our ancestors, our lineage, where we stemmed from, why we stemmed from that, what are our roots? What we consider to be our roots. What do we consider? whether it was high vibrational or low vibrational, how those things transferred into who we are today. And that was, a big part of the it's be the tree. It's a tree, right? There are parts that are underground that we don't see, and they go deep, and then they also go wide. And so when you think about that, and how that looks, in reality, that became, that's what I got from be the tree. What was the next one?
Revolution.
Revolution. So I would say there were parts of my life that I made assumptions about, based on where I was in that time of my life. So just a short a time of my life that I thought that my mother didn't believe in education, and that education was not a big part of her, because when I was graduating, when I was having my rites of passage and I was graduating, eighth grade, my mother was not there for me. But going through this process allowed me to see that during that same time, my mother was going through her own process. Her mom had just passed, and she was grieving her loss. And this was the last of her parents to pass. And that transition that she was going through, for herself, at that age, I wasn't paying attention to that. I wasn't paying attention to, I was like, well, that was, she passed in April. Like, this is June. Like, when you're a kid, you really, you, you have no real time of concept of real time,
Right.
right? So you're just like, but
Get
as an
over
adult, huh?
Get over it.
Right. I was like, yeah, it happened. Like, it wasn't, and I wasn't that close to her. So, to my grandmother. So that probably played a part into it as well. But, um, to be able to unpack and to see what that looked like, that was a revelation for me. And I was able to go back and apologize to her and say sorry, because I, created a story about that moment, that wasn't true. And so that was a revelation. So, being able to find out how to unpack those. And we're getting a lot of messages, and I'm sorry, me. So Zipporah, she says, really would love to do the rites of passage class. um and then she says, here doing my online class and trying to listen to you all. Well, thank you.
Oh my gosh. I
we,
hope
we
the class is not on surgery or anything. So,
right. We're all trying to multitask. Look, I
right.
got my baby
But
girl in here. She's doing her art class while I'm on here. Um, so then she says, COVID sure was an eye opener for me and my sons. I was afraid to tell anyone because they would treat me differently. Being a single mom and no support system, I had to pray and trust God to keep the kids from getting it.
yeah.
I see. And then she went on to say, she got scared because I didn't want to leave my sons motherless, and my mother is in Trinidad. So,
Mm, yeah, all of those considerations. And one of the things that I love about being part of a collective like Be the Tree is that, oh my gosh, the sisters are a stand for one another.
yeah,
So, it's not about your babies being left behind, and they may not be able to literally take them in, but you never know. Like Sahu's feet, when I think about Sahu's feet, I'm like, she'll be like, bring the babies over here. But it's amazing just how women show up for one another. Like, we have leaders that will come to your house, like cook
yeah,
food for you, take care of you, look out for you. Giving money is one part of it. Like, that's something that people can do with ease, but just showing up, connecting, calling, making
yeah,
sure you
calling.
ask for questions. I know I've been taken care of in my grieving experience, and even before that, and the level of volunteerism in the program. Sephora, we would definitely love to have you be on the journey. Once again, it starts this Sunday, and we'll continue manifesting women until like the second session, because you can catch up. We record the stuff, but I would love to talk to you about it because we would be happy to have you. And we have today is Wednesday. Tomorrow night we have an introduction session that's going to be led by two of the leaders, Jamie and Charmaine. And then Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, I'm leading an introduction session from 11 to 1 for Be the Tree, or 12 to 2. I have to look. But, I want to share the information. And if y'all don't want to thread, is this the Facebook thread?
Yep.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yep.
Then I'll
Yep. It's Facebook and YouTube. So we
excellent.
have
So Pippi has been saying some stuff. I want to hear what Pippi has to say. I missed
so so
one of
Pippi said, Zipporah, she said you're late. Have the talk and have it often. They don't remember anything, and like you said, friends are telling them the wrong thing. So I guess she was going back
oh
to some of
that.
our previous conversations where we were talking about having the conversations with your
Mhm.
kids about the transitions for them. And then she says, coming in on the end of this talk, but I'm enjoying it tremendously and would love to hear more. Thank you, ladies. So thank
Awesome.
you.
So Pippi, I'm assuming it is. I don't want to mispronounce your name, and then we can't hear each other, so I'm making an assumption here. So forgive me if I'm mispronouncing. Definitely, this conversation is a necessary one to have. So whether it's joining the Be the Tree Rights Collective for Adult Women, which is an intergenerational program. When I say intergenerational, like I mean that. Like we've had women as young as 19, and the most seasoned sister that has taken the journey was 72 years old, and women from different walks of life and backgrounds. Like Athenia identifies as a Christian woman, and we have women who are Muslim, who are part of Yoruba tradition. It's not about judging what you believe. What it is about is making sure that what you believe has integrity, and that you walk in that powerfully, and that you're not making up that you're all about love and connection and love of all mankind, and then hating on your mama, and just being angry all the time and stuff. Because sometimes the doctrine that we learn inside of our faith walk, we don't apply it in our day-to-day life. And I'm not talking about perfectionism, I'm just talking about alignment. Because I fall out all the time, meaning I mess up. I'm out of integrity. I say things, I think things that are not aligned with who I declare myself to be in the world. But I love that I catch myself, and then I'm like, girl, and then I tell on myself, not only just catch myself, but I'm like naming it in space. And the way that Be the Tree is designed, is not enough for you to think it in your mind, like, oh, this stuff. We invite you to name it and to claim it and to say it out loud, like Athenia being in the space and saying, I have this issue with my mother. She doesn't respect education, being upset, angry, resentful, whatever that is, and naming it and struggling throughout the program with that, and other women too. Every woman doesn't walk in and be like, yeah, I want to give that up. Like you like, yes, I'm right. My mother was mean. My mother did beat me. And the facts are the facts, but how we get to be about the facts is a choice, right? My experience of molestation, I could walk around my life, and I did it for the first portion of my adult life and my teenage years, like angry girl, like look what happened to me, and that's why I'm mean sometimes, because look what they did to me. And I'm like, I know better. And when you know better, you don't always do better. You just know, right? So I was choosing, I knew better, and I didn't do better. I was just like, the hell with that. I mean, because they hurt me, and I feel justified, and they can get over it. And then I just recognized the impact that was having on me, because my core belief is in love and connection. My core way of being is I'm very sensitive, very intuitive, very aligned, love people, love connection. And so to be operating from rageful, angry space all the time was killing me. So I had to release it. I chose to, I didn't have to do anything. And so we always invite women to do that. Athenia, just thinking about, so let me share the details, because we have 3 minutes left, so I want to be responsible. The program is offered in virtual space. Be the Tree Rites of Passage Collective is what I'm speaking about, the Adult Rites of Passage program for women. It's offered on Sundays for those who can do it on Sunday from 6 to 9. It's offered on Mondays for those who can do it on Mondays from 6:30 to 9:30. We used to have it in live space and virtual space, but after COVID, we chose to do it both days virtually. Um, we have coaches that are trained and developed. They're also graduates from the program. We have leadership support people that help the coaches to execute the program. There's a collective, let's say there's 20 women that come on Sunday nights for the session. We break you up into smaller groups, and those smaller groups are called clusters, and the clusters are named after trees. Ergo, be the tree, right? So it's the heathers, the elms, the sequoia, and the birches. And all of those trees have energy and meaning. So if you don't believe me, Look up the meaning of the birch tree or the energy that a birch carries, and look at images of the birch or the sequoia. Like the sequoia is like the sentinel for the planet. It's like the tallest trees, the widest trees, and then they also have this powerful meaning and message behind them. So we assign women clusters to be in, and then you get the undivided attention of a coach and the leadership support people. The tuition for the program is $950. I always tell women, don't let money and time stop you from doing it, because that's probably what you let stop you from doing everything that you don't end up doing. It's like, oh, I don't have the money, I don't have the time. It's not about the money for me. The money exchange is just part of what is workable for having a business. For me, it's about the transformation of lives of women and for women to stand in their purpose. So if you don't know your purpose, come to Be the Tree, and we will help you to declare that in real time and space. And if you do, we'll help you live it unapologetically every day in every way. Like I wake up every morning with my purpose, which is to utilize the word in all forms to ignite mind, body, and spirit transformation across the planet. That is my purpose. So I'm a word person, training, teaching, coaching, performing, singing, writing. I'm an author. So the word is what my purpose is aligned with. So anything that involves the word, that is what I do. And also being a psychotherapist too. So that involves the word, talk therapy, and supporting people in that way. Um, what else? What else is there to say? It starts on this weekend. So Sunday, if you do the session, it's August 23rd. Monday is August 24th. If you do Monday session, and it ends on December 7th with everybody culminating together. So Athenia talked about the dance and the movement and the singing. All of that is part of the celebratory process of completing the program. And we operate from integrity. So you must honor the structure and the rituals to be eligible to complete. And you must be sisterly, and you must be about the business of working on yourself and dealing with some of the stuff that's the darkest about you, as well as the stuff that makes you grand and awesome and full of light and life. And that is the main structure for it. And I would love to once again invite you to the introduction sessions. There's one tomorrow night, and then there's one on Saturday. And then invite you to join us on the journey, because we would love to have more awesome women like yourselves be in the process. So what's up with Pippi? What's Pippi saying? Oh, she was gonna name her daughter Sequoia.
Yeah, and she said she forgot. When I remembered, I told her she loved it, and introduced herself as Chelsea
Yeah,
Sequoia.
yeah,
Nice.
powerful. Sequoias are beautiful, magnanimous trees. All of them are. The birch, the elm, the heather. But the sequoia stands out for me. Like you can literally be standing in front of a sequoia, and it can be bigger than, as wide as a house or wider, and then as tall as, I don't even know. They have some world record about the sequoia. But I just wanted to say that I pray that you ladies will consider joining us. Beyond I love that you were here today and you responded, but just consider at least hearing more about the program by joining one of the introduction sessions, and we can put this in the thread so that you can join us and be part of the process. And then you have the link there. So thank you so much, sis, for putting the link up for the website.
I also shared it onto the YouTube and the Facebook page,
Wonderful.
um, the direct link, so that they can just press it and go straight to the site.
All right, excellent. Um, really, really appreciative for the time, the attention, the co-creation, the umoja that was present in the space, the unity that was demonstrated. Just really, really grateful. And Athenia, thank you for extending this invitation and allowing me
No
to hold
problem.
space and allowing me grace to get in the space, because it took forever. I'm like, ah! So, but I'm like, hello,
No
yes.
worries.
So I appreciate that beyond words, and hope to come back again soon. And
Would love to have you.
to meet some of you, like in real time, definitely physically, but definitely virtually, meet you and connect with you so we can keep growing and glowing together.
Well, appreciate it. Thank you so much, Shawnee. You have been a blessing to so many. I think we had at least 60 people at the highest point, and I'm sure, like you said, this is the middle of the day, so I'm sure a lot more people are gonna watch and listen to this later on. Um,
Awesome.
and we definitely hope that they are blessed by getting to join the Beat a Tree program, as it was a blessing to me. I was glad to be a part of it, and my entire family got to be blessed by seeing my growth and being a part of it. Yes, babe.
This one is for you.
Okay, thank you.
They ready. They like it's
She's here. She's here showing me her artwork that she's doing. So,
oh, let us
um,
see. Yes, let us
yeah.
see. Yes, right. You better work it, girl. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mommy, just put it with your other one.
Okay, I'll put it with my other stuff. Thank you, sweetheart. So,
I love it.
yes.
Well, y'all have a blessed rest of the day. And
You
those
do the same?
way, be blessed. And we hope to connect soon. Take care, sis. Thank you.
Yes. Have a great one. Thank you. Bye, everyone.